Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Art of Being a Woman. I'm your host, Courtney, and today we are discussing the art of taking full responsibility for your life. This is going to be a great episode because by the end of it, you will feel more in control of your own life and you will also feel more capable of making your life more enjoyable. We're going to cover 4 steps that will help us get to that point in our lives where we claim responsibility over the life that we have and we make the most out of it, which will ultimately lead to our happiness and fulfillment. The 4 steps are the following. 1, choose to stop waiting for change. 2, understand unhealed pain gets recycled. 3, remember your feelings are your responsibility. And 4, align your actions with what you know. Let's get straight into it. Step 1, choose to stop waiting for change. I believe this step is the most important step out of all 4 because one of the biggest things many of us do without realizing is that we sleep on our potential. And all of us have potential for greatness. It's just different for each and every one of us. For some of us, it can be putting ourselves out there on social media. For others, it can be learning a new skill that we've always been interested in and we just never took a chance on it. Whatever it may be, each and every one of us is destined for greatness, as cheesy as that sounds, but we must pursue it. Yes, some people are born naturally gifted and naturally talented, but even those people know that if they don't take action on their gifts and their talents, it won't be as strong as those that do constantly put in that work to better themselves. So, one of the first things we must really consider when we take full responsibility for our life is to really reflect and think about the things that we are interested in, the things that excite us to think about, and really get honest about how we can start taking action so we can make these ideas in our head come true. Something I realized personally was that the more something is meant for you, the more resistance you're going to experience when it comes to taking action on it. For example, this podcast for me was something that would cross my mind so many times before I even considered taking it seriously. And I really convinced myself for quite some time that if it was meant for me, it would fall into my lap, whether I would have a friend that would start a podcast and then she would ask me to do it with her, or I would just do it later on in life when I had more free time or more confidence. It wasn't until I got really honest with myself that I realized I'm just stalling. I'm just avoiding taking responsibility. I'm avoiding taking matters into my own hands and going for it and creating the change instead of waiting for God, the universe, to force this change into my life. I do know that there are moments in life where things are changing and happening to us, and it's pretty out of our control. But when it comes to our potential for greatness, it has to come from us. It has to be something that we want to create. It has to be something that we desire strongly enough to take action on it. Let's use singers as an example. There are many people in this world that have incredible voices. Some people put themselves out there and they will post videos of themselves singing on social media, on YouTube, and then there's others that are hesitant to put themselves out there because they're honestly scared that they might succeed. And that sounds strange because the more common fear is fear of failure, but there really is a fear of success that we might not realize we carry. When I started this podcast, I think I was more scared of succeeding than failing, because if I failed, I knew I didn't care because at least I tried and carried out an idea that wouldn't leave me alone. I would be able to reflect on my life when I was older and tell myself, I went after something that excited me, and although it didn't work out, I did it. I tried and I'm proud of myself for trying. That's the easy outcome. But the harder outcome, or at least the more scary outcome, was what if this actually worked? What if this podcast became so much bigger than just me and it becomes my actual career? What if people all over the world listen to this podcast? What if friends and family and those that I might not necessarily feel completely comfortable with them listening to all the details of my life, what if they stumble across this podcast and listen to it? All of those thoughts were more intimidating to me than the thoughts of failing. And it's because when we succeed at something, it adds a sense of responsibility. And I believe that responsibility can be intimidating because what if we can't handle it? What if it becomes too much? What if it feels overwhelming? These are all valid thoughts. And these are thoughts that I have myself when I create change for myself in my life. But what I remind myself is that if something is meant for me and God put something in my life, it's because I can handle it. And it might not be easy in the beginning. I'm sure it's going to be uncomfortable because it's change, and change is always uncomfortable in the beginning. But I've gone through so many changes in my life, so I will get through it like I always get through it. And the same is true for each and every one of us. When we decide to change something in our lives, even if we have no proof that it's going to work out, we owe it to ourselves to take responsibility for our lives and see where our potential can lead us. It just requires action. It requires action to start, which is usually the hardest part, but it also requires consistent action. When you change something in your life and you decide to go after something, you don't need to know the next 10 steps you need to take. You just need to know the first step. And if you are someone that has this idea in your head, as you're listening to this episode, you know what it is you want to explore in life, you're just hesitant, you only need to know the first step. Once you do that first step, the second step will begin to reveal itself to you. I don't know how that works or why that works, but it just does. When I first started this podcast, all I did in the beginning was write down episode ideas. From there, I bought a microphone. I didn't have this elaborate plan. I started taking small steps, and as I took more action towards my goals, I began to build more confidence, which just helped me move further along. So to conclude this step, make a decision to take responsibility for your life by taking initiative towards the things that excite you. And don't allow your excuses to make you wait for things to fall in your lap. Step 2, understand unhealed pain gets recycled. This step is a little different from step 1. Step 1, we are focusing on the things that excite us and bring us joy. And step 2 is more about how to get to that point of following your excitement and your joy, but it's by doing shadow work. And shadow work, if you're not familiar with that, is when you work on the parts of yourself that either you consciously keep hidden or the parts of you that are subconsciously hidden. Now, both are usually tied to the pain that we've experienced in our lives, whether it's emotional, physical, any sort of pain, but it's specifically pain that we have not healed. And in my opinion, I would say unhealed pain is pain that you didn't fully accept. Now, what does that mean? Sometimes we go through things in life and we know that they happened to us. We know that it hurt us, but part of us has a hard time accepting that it happened because it feels unfair. We didn't deserve it. And that makes a lot of sense because a lot of the pain that many of us have experienced was throughout childhood. And when we're children, we're vulnerable and we're at the mercy of adults. So it's hard when we're adults and we look back and we realize how helpless we were or how vulnerable we were to fully accept that we experienced certain painful moments. Now, I'm not a psychologist and I don't know the pain that every person carries. I do know that some pain is more traumatic than others, and I do know that when we don't accept that what we went through shaped us into the person that we're meant to become, we end up feeling this pain a lot longer than we need to. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't take our time to feel the pain of what we've experienced in our lives. We should, but there comes a time when we're just dwelling on it and it's overstayed its welcome. When we do that, whether consciously or unconsciously, the pain gets recycled into new experiences with new people. This is why people will say, oh, I always attract toxic relationships in my life. I always attract a toxic boss. I always attract toxic friends. I always attract toxic men, women in my life. This is not because God has it out for you or the universe has it out for you to make your life miserable. It's actually happening intentionally so that we go within and we look at the parts of ourselves that are drawn to people that trigger this pain within us. Because from there, we become aware of the pain that we didn't fully accept. And when we do that, we can release it and we can move forward. Something that has helped me and still helps me to this day. Whenever I experience pain, I always tell myself that everything that I go through is teaching me a lesson so that I can help others that have gone through what I went through or will eventually go through what I'm going through. Because there are no feelings in life that are truly unique. Although the things that we experience in life are unique, the feelings we feel are shared. By accepting the pain that I've experienced, by processing it and releasing it, I now have the experience to talk about these things and hopefully help someone else who is trying to overcome unhealed pain in their life and move forward. Step 3, remember your feelings are your responsibility. This is a big one, and this is something that I wish every single person knew. Our feelings are our responsibility. It doesn't matter who triggered them within us. What matters is how we deal with it. How do we react to it? How do we respond to it? How do we move on from it? We can be aware that we're angry and we can be aware that we're sad, but if we don't take responsibility for those feelings, we end up projecting it onto other people. We end up picking fights with other people and trying to get a reaction from other people so that they feel the way that we feel, whether we realize it or not. If we are the person that yells at other people when we're angry and we're frustrated, that means that we have anger within ourselves and we are not taking responsibility for it. And therefore, we're projecting it onto another person. We can feel justified in our anger, in our sadness, but our response is within our control every single time. And we must take responsibility for it, or we lose control over our own life. One of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received when it comes to taking responsibility for your feelings is to pause. Anytime you feel very strongly about anything, even if it's excitement, actually, anytime you feel something very strongly, pause, because you don't want to allow the emotion to consume you. It gets hard to think clearly and choose clearly when you're consumed by emotion. Allow yourself to feel how you feel without reacting, and once you feel level-headed enough and in complete control and in complete agreement with how you choose to react next, that's when you take action. Before we move on to step 4, I just want to share that when we don't take responsibility for our feelings, what happens is it creates a boomerang effect. And this can be hard to catch on to because it's never immediate. But for example, if you are someone that when you get angry and you lose your cool, you raise your voice, even if you don't mean to, and perhaps it's something that you learned growing up, perhaps that's just your home environment, whatever it may be. Without realizing it, if you look at your life, you'll notice that you will get that same energy back from people, whether it's your loved ones will yell at you when they're angry with you, or perhaps strangers are just more hostile, more aggressive with you. It's not going to be obvious. I don't think it ever is obvious, but it's true. I recommend you reflect on your life and see if you notice that theme, that pattern, because I guarantee you, if you work on a certain emotion that you feel like controls you more than others and your reaction improves, you will notice a positive improvement from those around you as well. Step 4, align your actions with what you know. Honestly, this step is harder than it sounds. Although it may seem pretty simple to act on what you know, I think when it comes to being in those moments where you have an opportunity to act on what you know, it's a bit of a struggle because it's easy to just know better. You have the information in your mind, you know what's right and what's wrong, and it doesn't require any action, it doesn't require any bravery whatsoever. It's pretty passive. But when you have to act on what you know, it's uncomfortable because it doesn't come easy. We all know the phrase easier said than done, and it's true. We can know that we should stop waiting for change, but are we taking initiative on the things that inspire us, or are we falling for our excuses? Now that we have the knowledge and we know that we should stop waiting for change, we need to act on it so that we are in alignment with what we know. We can know that unhealed pain gets recycled, but are we doing that inner work of healing that pain? That is taking action on what we know. And until we do that work, we are not acting on what we know and we are not living in alignment. Lastly, we can know that our feelings are our responsibility, and yet when we are in the heat of a moment where our emotions are so high, it becomes very hard to act on what we know. So allow this last step to really stay with you, because what is the point of knowing if we don't act on what we know? What would be the benefit of knowing better but not doing better? I honestly think it hurts to know better and not do better, and we don't want to cause ourselves any unnecessary hurt. So consider that when you decide to take full responsibility for your life, because taking responsibility for your life means doing something with all the knowledge that you have about life. And we all have tremendous knowledge when it comes to life through our experiences, but we don't always act on it. Allow yourself to claim that responsibility, act on it, and see how far you can take yourself in life. It will only expand your capacity for happiness, for fulfillment, and it will truly put you on the path of achieving greatness and your highest potential. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. I really love discussing this topic. My voice definitely went in and out a little bit throughout this episode, which happens sometimes. So I apologize for that if my voice changed throughout this episode. If you enjoyed this topic, please rate this podcast and please share it with a friend or family member, anyone that you think would benefit from this. I hope you have an amazing week. I love you all. Until next time, bye for now.